What's up, people, and welcome to Developer Habits, a YouTube channel for software engineers interested in growth mindset, developer lifestyle, and technical tutorials. My name is Ketmar, I'm a software engineer from Estonia, and today I am interviewing Marten Meikop, who's a former colleague of mine from Pipedrive, one of the most successful startups of Estonia. His current occupation is, working as an engineering manager, but in this interview, we're going to talk about how he became a developer, then moved on into software architecture, then finally, became an engineering manager. But what's even more exciting is his side project that's been going on for over 15 years. I genuinely believe that this interview contains tons of great knowledge for both less and more experienced developers. So also hit the subscribe button, please. So without any further ado, let's get started.
Hi, Martin, and how's it going?
Hello, Gethmar. All good. So my name is Marten Meikop. Currently, I'm working in Pipedrive as an engineering manager. I have a pretty long career in IT, and yes, I have this interesting hobby project which has lasted for 15 years and still ongoing.
I think I've never heard anyone who has a hobby or side project that long. So I guess we're going to dive more into that a bit later. But you did mention that you have a long career behind you. Maybe you can talk more about that and how did you get into programming or development in the first place?
Okay, so it all started in last century in 1999 when I went to high school in Nõo, which is in southern Estonia. And there we had programming courses or classes, and then we coded in Pascal. So it was really exciting for me from the beginning. We had this classmates, a group of classmates. We were coding during the day and then after school. And I guess I was 15 or 16 when I already decided that my future will be related to IT and then programming. After no, I went to university, TalTech, informatics, did my master's there, went even to get the PhD, but academic career wasn't for me. And while I was studying in the university, I went to my first job in IT. It was coding in C for Bang & Olufsen products. Bang & Olufsen has this really expensive and exclusive audio video technology. I was mostly coding TV menus in C.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And during that time, it was 2006 and 2007, I also started my hobby project.
Yeah, there are already many interesting points that you brought out that I'd like to ask more about. So firstly, when you were like 15, 16 and you started programming, what was it that kind of hooked you into it, or what made you decide, okay, this is what I want to continue with?
I guess I was pretty strong in math, and coding was like solving problems or solving some mathematic tasks. For me, it seemed to me, at least, we were coding those warm games or painting programs, and it was mostly about solving something and expressing yourself through it.
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know much about computers. I got my first personal computer when I was 17. So I was coding on the school's computers at start. So telling computer what it should do was also kind of fascinating for me.
Yeah, I guess especially in the end of 90s and beginning of 2000s is well, I actually created my first website in 2001, and even then internet was still this really new thing, and you know, magical kind of.
Yeah.
So I yeah, didn't write C at that time, but did try to play around with HTML. But regarding, you also mentioned mathematics, and it's one of those discussions I've been having with many people. Um, like, do you need to be good in mathematics in order to be a good developer? So, you as an engineering manager, for example, how would you approach that question?
For me, mathematics and coding have this common part, which is logical thinking. I mean, when you learn mathematics in high school, it's not about equations to study them by heart, but it's all about this logical thinking, when and where to use those equations, and coding and programming requires also that. So you understand the problem, you have some background knowledge, but in these days you don't need to know basically anything by heart. You just go to Stack Overflow and ask your questions, and then see the code examples, and then copy paste them. But still, to know what to use where, which kind of platforms or programming languages to use to solve a specific problem. I guess that's the part when the logical thinking is most required.
Hmm. So it's more about, you know, being able to like solving problems and think logically in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah, because what happened for example in high school, I was really bad in mathematics, and I thought, okay, I'd like to become a developer, but maybe it's not for me. But I still went to study in the new university, and I understood, hey, these are completely different kind of mathematical exercises that we're doing here. And I was like, oh, it's not that hard actually. It's just about, solving problems. And the same with programming, I guess.
Mathematics is basically the same thing, but only on paper with pen.
Yeah,
So,
that's well said.
yeah.
Anyways, let's move on with you. You mentioned that your first professional job was as a developer, but then you moved on to, as I understand, to become a software architect.
Well, yes, I was pretty young, and I wanted to learn more about the whole industry, or see more. And then I went to Elion, which was the biggest telecommunication company in Estonia. Yes, my title was IT architect, but during those 4 years I was there, I also carried product manager and analyst roles, and I got to see what is IT inside of a big company. These different departments. Like system administrators, support. You have the IT department for external development, meaning developing products for your customers. Then you have another IT department building internal stuff, internal tools. So it kind of opened my eyes to see all that.
Mm-hmm. But regarding your daily activities, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, well, there was a small architecture team in Alien back then. Our main goal back then was to introduce this enterprise service bus. So it was already kind of binding those different systems together. Well, nowadays it's a more microservice. We would call it microservice-oriented architecture, but back then it was this enterprise service bus approach. Currently, it's considered as more like a single point of failure. But yeah, integrating different systems, having those common interfaces, and then in general, it was like getting all those systems into the level where there is more reusable code that you don't need to re-implement all these logics to different systems, but different applications can reuse other applications logic basically um, via some API.
And so you were one of those people who were kind of structuring out this whole project or change.
Yeah, specifically, I was called the data architect, so I was kind of describing the data model for Alien. So, in order to have this enterprise service bus, you need those XSD schemas to be defined. The data model has to be common throughout the different applications. So that was my task.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds really interesting because, well, basically, now I'm working in another company, but to me, Pipedrive is the only place where I draw my professional experience. And there, well, we used to have architects, but now we don't have such thing as architects there, right? It's just people go to missions, and we have guilds where like experienced developers discuss different architectural solutions or how to move forwards.
Yeah, we have architecture guild in Pipedrive right now, and I guess the goal was to make the architectural decisions more transparent. So we don't have pure architects, but we have people who are carrying this architecture role. But it's not only about defining architecture for the others. If you figure out a new solution, you will write it down and you will basically implement it yourself by running or leading some technical mission. And this has been working pretty well in Pipedrive so far.
Yeah, and if I understand correctly, one of the reasons was because we want architects to be kind of get their hands dirty to know how things are in the actual worlds.
Yeah,
In that sense.
and architects wanted it themselves also to have the capability to run something themselves, and this mission framework solved that problem pretty well. Different companies have different approaches regarding that. Some have solution architects, which are domain specific architects. Then there are general architects who try to keep an eye on everything and do research on new technologies, mostly in some R&D departments. But basically, an architect should be a person who has vast knowledge about IT. Back then, when I joined Alien, I didn't. So But I was hired. I got to learn a lot about IT in a bigger company, and I'm really thankful for that opportunity. But after that, I moved to Tartu. I was living in Tallinn back then for 7 years, and then I moved to Tartu, and I was leading ProExperts Tartu office. ProExpert is an Estonian IT company, and I was leading that office for 3 years. It was mostly about managing people and a little bit about technical stuff also. Then I did some. Actually, I did a startup.
Oh,
I found an investor. I had an idea. We coded a little bit. We actually launched an app, and but it didn't fly in Tartu. And after that, I took some time off, half a year, and then was coding mostly my hobby project, and then joined Pipedrive. So that's basically the story of my professional career. And why I moved away from coding professionally or working as a full-time developer was the fact that I launched this hobby project, and I figured that if I was coding full time from 9 to 5, and then went home and then started coding my hobby project, that would have been too much coding for me. So I tried to find my balance, not to code at work, but rather code in the evenings and on the weekends.
that sounds like a really, I would say, wise and conscious decision to make. Because, yeah, why I'm doing this developer habits more from the soft skills side is also because I don't want to, continue programming or doing coding tutorials, because, well, it's still related to something I do doing my daily job. So it's, I kind of understand you from that point.
Yep.
But can we maybe jump into your current occupation as an engineering manager? Because now you are connected to people, you manage the like kind of where your team moves tech-wise. So you're still connected to people and tech out there. So maybe you can describe what are your like duties now.
Okay, so engineering manager role is also different. There are more technical engineering managers, more management-oriented engineering managers. Well, I am this more technical guy. I am leading the Pipedrive core engineering team, or tribe as we call it. The tribe size is currently 17, so quite a big team. And yeah, I have been in this technical path the whole time in Pipedrive. I have been running technical projects that have lasted for over a year. One example was opening our European data center. The other one was dealing with the aftermath of that project, or making our data centers independent. That also lasted for over a year. So the people are independent, and I try to be more like a coach. I don't manage anyone. The people are free to choose what to work on. We have this mission framework. They are free to choose the missions to join, and I guess my role there is to be this coach. Maybe sometimes find mission leads for some engineering missions, to encourage engineers to step up and lead some initiatives. So that has been mainly my role. And yes, as I'm involved in those architectural discussions and decisions, I have. I have taken the role of also the engineering PM. So if I see a problem, I try to generalize it and then write a mission brief out of it. So basically, write down the ideas for the new missions or projects. And yep, and even on the architectural level, I have written documents describing the new system architecture and design. And
Mhm. There are two things I'd like to ask now. Firstly, at least when I was growing up and I learned to code, the stereotype was that developers are those people who just want to code and they don't want to do anything with business sides. And now, as you are an engineering manager, you also have the technical knowledge, and you also jump into the like business sides to kind of move the business forwards. Um, how do you see nowadays? Are developers in general more like can they jump more easily between the tech and business sides, or is it just some specific environments where, for example, in Pipedrive?
I mean, we all are different. There are engineers who want to do mostly core backend. They don't want to code um, UI or customer facing services, but there are also engineers who only want to do that to have that feel, to have that impact to the product in general, to get feedback from the end users, to learn from their. So actually, I'm really glad that Pipedrive has this mission system and then kind of projects they want to do. And people get tired of what they do. That's a fact. Um, so if you have been doing core backend for years, you get tired of it, and then you want to jump into product development, and then even do some real front end development time to time, um, and it's really important to give this flexibility or freedom to engineers. In my previous companies, I have seen people, okay, switching teams, which is like bigger decision. You know that you will be stuck in that new team also for a year or two. But in worst case, people leave the company to do something else. And if you can provide that flexible framework for the engineers, our we haven't seen many leavers from Drive in recent years, and that's great. I guess that proves that this mission framework works.
Yeah, I mean, as a, as I just left the company a couple of months ago, I still like I dare to watch. I don't feel sorry for saying that Pipedrive is one of the best companies out there. Like you can do whatever you want to. You yourself just have to know what you want, and
Yes.
you have all that support system around you. Either if it's you want to take on technical challenges or leading projects or whatever, it's just up to you to decide. You mentioned that your current team or tribe, how it's called in Pipedrive, mostly consists of mid and senior level developers. And from my own experience, I know that if you want to kind of reach that mid level, it's more straightforward if you move from junior to mid, because like you are still schooled, you are still there's like kind of more clear roadmap to achieve that mid level, I would say. But if you are a mid level and you want to become a senior, things aren't that clear anymore, because you, as a mid level, you have to be more independent, you have to take initiatives and so on. So I'd like to ask you, what makes or what's the difference between a mid and senior level developer, and do you have any advice for people regarding how to top themselves up?
Actually, you left right before we launched this new evaluation process where we have defined really specifically all those levels, even levels within the mid-level range and then senior range, all the differences between mid and then senior and principal. So we have that defined on paper, and we do those evaluation processes a couple of times a year, so that you can evaluate yourself, your closest team members can evaluate you, and then based on that evaluation, we can tell that whether you are now on a new level or not. But in general, what we look from senior engineers is that they have to be the examples um, for the mid and juniors, meaning they have to step up, show initiative, be visible outside of the team, lead initiatives or missions, take part in guild work. So it's and yes, the capability of designing a new service from scratch, and so on. So if you have most of that in place, you will become a senior engineer in Pipedrive.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it goes without saying that you also must have like really proficient technical skills.
Yes, of course. That's why the designing new services I brought up. So designing means that basically writing the structure of the new service and architecture, how
Okay.
it will communicate with other services, what kind of APIs it will provide, and so on. So.
Mm-hmm. But now I'm just gonna make a really big change regarding our topic, to move into your own side project or hobby project, where I assume you've got to experience tons of architectural decisions and system design and so on. So maybe you can introduce us to your side projects.
Okay, so it all started back at high school again. We were playing draughts, online draughts, or checkers. And when I went to university, the site where we were playing at was closed, and I figured with a couple of friends that let's create our own online checkers playing system. We started to write that, and I finally did my bachelor's and then master thesis on that topic, and I released or I released the site in 2007. It's called vint.ee, and it's basically now an Estonian mind sports website. I have developed 30, that is 3 and 0, games there during the last 14, 15 years. We started with board games, turn-based board games like chess, Othello, Komoku, Connect 4. Then moved on to card games. Thousand is one example. And then at some point we expanded the framework and then brought in single player games. You can solve Sudokus in vint.ee. Now you can solve crosswords also, but it's only in Estonian language. And we have multiplayer card games also now. Texas Hold'em was the last game I implemented in vint.ee. And in general, I have put 6,000 man hours personally into that project. Last year was crazy. I totally revamped all the UI, made vint.ee multi-language. So it's in Estonian, English, and Chinese currently. So yeah.
Okay. Like, I've got so many questions regarding that. But okay, I'm just gonna ask you. 15 years, 6,000 hours. Like when I start with a side project, it's like I'm gonna put in maximum couple of hundred of hours. So tell me, what, why, how, what motivates you and what keeps you going?
Um, yeah, well, what keeps me going currently, or let's start from the beginning. Creating an online game was really exciting for me, and I guess I was lucky to begin with the most popular games in Estonia, and the fact that there wasn't any other website in Estonian where you could play chess and checkers back then. I got quite many users from the beginning, and I saw that there is something in there, and currently I have enough users that keeps me motivated. The user amount is actually growing, has been growing in recent years, so I can still show growth after 15 years. And it has been mostly about learning how to implement different parts of the system. So maybe I'll describe shortly what the system is about. It's Java standard edition in the backend, listening to WebSocket. It's PostgreSQL database in the backend, and on the front-end side, it's pure JavaScript. Not really pure. I use jQuery still, but I'm painting on canvas all the boards. I'm listening to the WebSocket in the browser and sending back some JSON to the server. So yep, that's the basic description. It took me 5 or more years to get the backend like really bug free or so the backend is multi-threaded Java application. How do you synchronize those threads? What is the general architecture of the site? You have multiple game rooms, tournament rooms now. How do you code it so that they can be independent, that a bug in one game room doesn't affect the experience in another game room, but it's still a single application. On the front end side, I have rewritten the front end a couple of times already. We started with the Java applets, and I guess it was 2012 when we saw that this is a dying technology, as Flash has died out. So we needed to rewrite all the front ends to HTML5 and this jQuery.
Oh wow.
And then now I'm rewriting it again to be responsive. Currently, all the other web is responsive already, but the game room itself is not responsive. So the experience in mobile is poor. And if I get that done, I will definitely try out to launch even an app to just a launcher to execute the HTML and then JavaScript in some app launcher. Not to start writing a native app, but to try out. If I'll get more users. Currently, it works in every newer browser, so it works on mobile browsers as well. And then I'm seeing mobile traffic. It's like maybe 20% out of all the traffic.
It's like I'm listening to, and sorry, I cannot get the number 15 years out of my head. And you never once mentioned money that you want to gain from it. So do I assume correctly that to you, as you said, it's mostly about learning? Then throughout 15 years, you mentioned Java applets, you now mentioned jQuery, for example, different technologies that you constantly have to relearn.
Yes. Well, one reason why we are still alive after 15 years is that we didn't do it for the money. The money has been the third motivator behind it. Yes, it has been about learning different technologies. It has been a way to express myself, to code really interesting stuff. But for me, the most interesting parts have been Sudoku online generation, crosswords online generation, how to do it really fast. Those have been pretty complex algorithms behind it. Also, Texas Hold'em, all the game logic behind that, tournament systems, and so on. So I have been looking for interesting stuff to code, and I have this project where I can do it. And thirdly, there is this making the world a better place thing. We started to organize tournaments for Estonian school children so that they can play at least a couple of games of chess and checkers. Because we strongly believe that those games are also really good for your logical thinking, and then to develop your concentration or ability to focus on something on a longer period of time. And this project has been going pretty well as well. We have been doing it for 8 years already. Over 4,000 students have participated in the program, over 150 schools. And then next week will be the competition again. So the whole week we have all 5 days covered. So on Monday it's chess, Tuesday draughts, Thursday Komoku, Wednesday Komoku, Thursday Sudoku, and then Friday crosswords. So it's really cool to see that all the students are coming and playing on a website that you created. It gives you some kind of a great feeling, at least.
I saw how you got more excited when you were talking about that. I feel so bad because we are running out of time, and I have like tons of different questions, technical and also soft sides. But I'm just gonna try to conclude everything. So regarding your side projects, I have one question left. How do you see how much has having that side project helped you in your professional career?
A lot. I remember having an interview when joining Pipedrive. I had an interview with one of the founders, Henk, and I was telling about I was telling him about my hobby project, and I saw that that it had effect on him. I guess it's mostly about being able to prove that you are consistent. Doing 15 years the same thing so shows consistency. My professional career hasn't been so consistent. I have been switching companies after 2 or 4 years. And I guess it shows also the interest about the IT in general, or the interest towards learning new things, and then the capability to learn new things. So it has opened some doors for me in my professional career as well.
So you would also recommend it to other developers out there?
Definitely. I have been in, I guess, 100 job interviews conducting myself, I mean. And if I have two candidates, one has hobby projects and one doesn't have, I tend to pick the one who has hobby projects because of the same reasons. I can see the true interest to that in informatics or coding in general.
Mm-hmm. All right. In that case, like as I said, I think we would have like another 1 hour session to talk about. But I'm just gonna ask you one final question today. If you had to name one habit that has made you a better developer, architect, a manager, a professional, then what would be that habit?
I guess it's asking the why or how questions often, and then not being afraid of making a fool out of yourself by asking that. So for me, I'm trying to be as transparent as I can, and I'm not afraid of telling people about stuff that I don't know. It's totally okay that a person can't know all the things. So yep, asking those questions, trying to figure out how stuff works, and yep, this has been my way of evolving throughout the years. To well, of course, not all the things are interesting for you, but those which are, you should um, like get to know how the things work in the back end, how the internet works, whatever. Like
That's something I also have to remind myself all the time. Like, firstly, don't be afraid to make a fool out of yourself. And secondly, if you don't understand, just raise your voice, because the tech world is so big and full of so many different nuances that it's hard to know everything. But
Yes.
with that said, Marten, well, it's been an amazing chat. Like, it's been amazing to hear your journey, and I'm really thankful that you took out this time from your day to spend it talking about all those interesting things.
Yeah, thank you too.
I guess that's it, guys. If you have any questions to Marten, or you just want to, know something more about him or his projects, then just reach out in the comment section, and also go check out vint.ee. I'm also going to post a link in the description of this video. But with that said, I thank you for listening and see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.